we'll call the meeting for regular Planning Commission Armada Village to order. And we'll start with the pledge. Everybody rise. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Elke? Here. Henderson here. Shaw?
Here.
Graham?
Here.
Patterson?
Here.
Okay, come back to my office. Behave. Stay where you're at.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, we will need an approval of the agenda. If anybody has any add-ons or any questions, we'll take care of that first.
I'll make a motion that we accept the approval agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We are now looking at the meeting minutes of the August 1st, 2022 meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Public comment. Well, we just lost our public, so I'm assuming there's none of that. Let's, we'll save that for later. So let's go right into the zoning ordinance review. We'll start with sections 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, these are the ones that are ready for print. All, right, all of them, Becky?
There's no crossouts on there, correct?
Okay.
For 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Yep.
We know put that down, right?
Anybody got anything you want to discuss about these? Everybody get a chance to look over them? You think we're looking good for print?
Okay.
Some of it. Yeah, my whole computer right now, just gone, done.
So I don't really have anything. There was a question about, she added back in the adult foster care facilities, not otherwise, because we asked for that.
Correct.
So that's good. And I know there was one spot, there was a question about the section references.
Should fix those.
Okay, so all of these, they'll still go through at the end and make sure that all the references are correct.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of makes me nervous. But
Which part?
that these and this, and because we've changed the document so much, and it's not an automatic thing. You have to go in and manually do it. It's just room for error. That's all. Right? There's no point really doing it as you go along. You do it when you're done, and you know you're just going to do it once. That's all. Otherwise, I didn't see a bunch of.
I didn't say anything in 4. I think it's fine.
This is all.
That comment made me think Becky must have something in 5.
No, I don't look. I did this a while ago.
You gonna
This
what?
was a while ago.
I did this a while ago. I said I gotta look.
Just last I saw that was everything was okay on 5.
Yeah, 5. I did too. I didn't have anything.
Anybody for 6?
This one is okay. Okay, 651, 651. Oh, they did it the way we wanted to do it. They did it the way. That 6.503 where we said it, we thought it was vague.
Correct.
I went back through that and I think it makes perfect sense. So I didn't see, I think, I don't know why we would have said that at the beginning other than it was just a lot of information at one time. I don't. It seemed okay to me. Did anybody have anything?
No, I always thought it was okay, but I could have read it differently than somebody else.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, is that
Correct.
we each have our own interpretation of how it goes. Which is why we have a whole board to
Right.
argue it out. Alright, so we're looking good on 6,
Yeah, I think 6 was pretty
a little
good.
quickie on 7, anybody got anything? I was good with it.
I don't think anything on 7.
And finally, 8.
We talked about the fences on 8.
We did, and nowhere does she have the 100% transparency for a chain link fence. She put the 4 foot in there, but she did not put the 100% transparency, so somehow that's still gotta get written
Well,
in there.
it says fences in front yard must be non-obscuring. Does that not cover it?
I don't know that, I can ask, I don't know.
Because that was my first thing, have to have 100% transparency, and then I went down and went, oh, well, that's what she did.
Yeah, I see it kind of
Let's see if that was.
is worded that way. Is that how we had it before?
Hold on, I'm gonna tell you right
Well, the one in the book is different from, we had already made changes to this one once.
now. We've made changes, but then we added those. Okay, nope, I'm good with that then, if you guys are good with that.
Okay.
So do you think that will do it?
Yeah, I would think that would be, because that was her addition.
Her way of treating it?
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
yeah, because it's even added after her last update that she sent us, so.
What,
So I would say yes. That would suffice for what we wanted it to do.
okay. We like Brian's changes, that was right, and that was in there. Oh, so that brings us to the decibels.
Correct. And I did some research.
Okay.
Romeo has a maximum of 65 in a residential area. Industrial is 70 during the night, 75 during the day. Bruce Township has 65 in a residential. M1, which is light manufacturing, and PI is planned industrial. Those are 70 and 75. Macomb Township, they didn't really discuss residential, but in industrial, they actually divided it out to 3, whether it's research industrial, light industrial, or heavy, to be 60, 65, and 70.
Okay.
I don't. Sterling Heights is 70 if you're next to an office or an R1. Otherwise, it's 65 decibels, 60 during the day and 55 at night for R1 office and commercial. So.
We don't have that specified at nighttime, do we?
We don't, we can, but as small as we are, you're going to, then we have to define night. You know, before, or, you know, after 6 p.m., after dark, after sunset, whatever you're gonna define night as. I don't know that, Sterling Heights and Romeo are the only 2 that specify day and night. The other ones just had a limit. So, And it seems like 65 is residential.
Mhm.
Sterling Heights was 60.
Okay, that's a little more than we had.
Yeah, ours is 55.
With the chart that she gave us last time was kind of what, I don't know what that is. I wrote down what the,
Correct.
so those are a little bit less than what our neighbors are doing, it seems to me.
Right.
Right.
So do we want to go along with the neighbors, or do we want to go with the standards?
I'd say we just go with the standards, that way there's less room for people to complain about it.
Or you're going to, on the other hand, you're going to get people that live at the edge of town say, but my neighbor is so much louder.
Right.
The advantage to going with your neighbors is you're comparing it to like people
What's-
by you,
right.
what's surrounding you.
Right.
Standards are standards. You can say that that's why we picked them. It's just the general. So there's an argument either way.
Right.
That's either way.
Right.
Might as well just leave them the way they are then.
They're too low.
They are kind of low.
Thinking, well,
I think they're too low.
Okay.
We don't really enforce it anyway, but,
Okay, so go to what?
this was from the chart, this was what was suggested on the
Okay.
chart. And this seems to be,
70 for animal agriculture,
60 for residential,
60.
but most of our neighbors are
65.
at 65 for
Well, let's go
residential.
65 then. Office and service, 70.
I didn't write all those down, I was going too fast, so I didn't get all of those. Yeah, on here, I did the ones that Becky said for the neighbors, wasn't able to write
we got
those.
for office and
Oh,
service.
for what I said?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Office, they didn't really, the only one that referenced office at all was Sterling Heights.
Then what was that?
60 during the day and 55 at night.
So let's go
We've
with
already
60.
decided we're not gonna try and pin down what we're gonna consider night, so it
Correct.
just stays
Let's go 60.
60,
Yeah.
okay?
office and 60,
Community,
Yeah.
so would that be like the fair?
I would say community would almost have to be similar to commercial. We don't have a community
Okay, so 65.
district.
Did you want me to check that?
No, Joe did it.
Okay.
I think it's the police department.
65
Oh,
back?
I did.
It's kind of up to you guys. I mean,
well, for community,
Yeah.
it's less than the, I don't have that, I didn't write down, I couldn't. keep up with that.
nothing I checked.
Well, I was thinking with residential 65, so why not community 65?
Right,
That's my thought.
I can see that.
Okay,
And commercial 65. And
that's
industrial.
that's the same as it is, though.
What's the difference between commercial and industrial?
Commercial would be downtown, industrial would be to Lucky Welding.
Yeah, commercials, shops and.
Oh, okay.
and
Stores, restaurants.
Stores and
general.
industrials are
Okay.
fabricating shops.
so we're keeping commercial at 65?
I think it should be more.
You wanna go 70?
If the standard is 75, and and our neighbors didn't have anything, they said 70.
Let's go
right?
70.
They really didn't address commercial. They did industrial.
And that was at,
Industrial was
70.
70 and 75, so.
okay. So we're sticking with 70?
Yeah, I think we should stick with 70.
So what'd you say for commercial?
70.
Alright, so
And what about the animal and
animal and agriculture, we
70.
went 70, residential 65, office and service 60,
Yeah,
community 65,
yeah,
commercial 70,
yeah.
and industrial 70.
Correct.
So why is the office and service, why does it need to be lower than residential or community? Office and services, it's like between 8 and 5 in the morning, 8 and 5.
You could make it 65 if you're just splitting hairs.
Yeah, just make it
Make it
so that
65
they're all
now.
right, an even level.
So we've got
65.
So we're going 65 with office and service, the rest, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
everybody okay with those?
70,
Think so. Any
65.
discussion?
70, 70. No, I'm good with that.
70, 65, 65, 65, 70, 70.
Yep.
Who would enforce that? Do we have a decibel running?
I would say we really don't. That would go to the code enforcer, so if somebody is complaining of excessive noise, I honestly, I don't even know if the village has the equipment
Yeah, I
to
was gonna
test
say
that.
they have the equipment.
So, but you can fall into any other multiple parts of the ordinance that talk about not being a nuisance to the neighbors.
Right.
So, that would just kind of be a way more or less for weeding out some things that might want to go into that district to say,
Right.
you make too much noise to be in that district
Mhm.
kind of thing. So,
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good.
that's all I had on 8.
Pardon me.
Okay, sounds like we're good with 8. Just those changes?
So, I think the rest of my book,
Do you have a copy of 9 and 10?
These are your books.
Have you legs broken?
Yeah.
Like what?
No, I didn't know. I think she's got it stashed away somewhere. I don't think it's from my survey right back. Is this mine per se, or this is a hidden copy, right?
It's the liaison
Yeah.
copy, so whoever is the liaison, that's their copy.
Okay. So we are on to 9 and 10. Start with 9, discussions.
Well, I went through and tried to, because on this chart here, we took a bunch of these things off on the chart and we put them in different spots, like some of them aren't. So will they conform all that, or do we need to tell them exactly how to conform it?
I will ask her to look at if we've moved something. She's been pretty good so far.
There were some of them I couldn't find, and I wrote those down,
Some,
that were on the use chart, the updated use chart, that weren't in the parking chart,
okay.
right? So I didn't, well, the animal agricultural one, you take those out.
Well, the only one you should have is veterinary clinics, kennels, or animal shelters. We can-
Right, but the parking chart has,
Right,
yeah.
should take the bottom 3 out.
Yeah. And then I went through and adult care facility, adult foster care. I couldn't, maybe they were, like some of them I found later because they were grouped in foster care group homes, maybe if they're there. It wasn't a one-for-one match. They have,
It's not, and
Yeah.
it never was.
they kind of have it, some things grouped together like businesses and things and.
And I could only guess that in theory, the formula would be the same.
Right.
That's why they did it.
Sure. It just makes it harder to do this.
Is there anything for handicap parking on off-street parking in Logan?
9.06.
Yes, we'll get there.
Thank you.
9.06, yeah.
We'll get there. Well, let's start out with page 8 or 9-2. Because I have some suggestions in my book that we had discussed prior to. So deleting the first, or the bottom 3 in that animal and agricultural uses, because we deleted them. Single-family dwellings, minimum, it was suggested to raise to 2 per dwelling, maximum 4 per dwelling, plus located spaces in any garage.
Okay.
And also put
Yep, 2.
up above, you have
Yeah.
2 per
In
building.
the accessory apartments, bed and breakfast inns, and multifamily dwellings, minimum
Instead
we
of
left at
1.5.
1, but maximum we left at, or we raised to 2 per dwelling unit. I mean, you have a married couple living in, half of a duplex.
Duplex.
They both work. you're not gonna wanna have cars.
Right,
So,
right.
we can't tell them they can't have
Be an
spots for two
interesting
cars.
thing to drive.
Yeah, be pretty small of their
They
hat,
have a
so.
smart car, so
You're right, yeah.
2 smart cars equals 1 full car.
There you go.
Then, on the next page, I have a big note across the top that says, predominantly this doesn't include, staff. But we thought that, I mean, some of them will mention employees and some doesn't.
You know,
So-
that's what I got here, add 1 per
Yeah.
employee.
Like on family and group daycare homes,
Mm-hmm.
Ben's suggestion was plus visitors. I
Right.
mean, so you gotta allow a maximum number of spots. And we ran into, in the maximum, we ran into a problem, with Vinkiers. Because by
Mhm.
them adding that side parking lot, they exceeded their maximum allowed. So that was the purpose of raising some of these numbers, cause they're unrealistic by today, you know,
Yeah.
Standards.
standards. More people own cars now than they
So we
do.
accommodated Vinkers by doing that.
Well, what we did is we found a place in the ordinance that allowed the planning commission to modify the maximum number.
Spaces.
Okay.
So we didn't circumvent, we didn't just ignore part of the ordinance. We
Right.
found a way that it was
It allowed you
okay.
to make
Yeah,
an
to
adjustment.
allow it, correct. So I'll just read the notes and I'll go down, and then when I'm done, you guys can say yay or nay. Under banks and financial institutions, we suggested, minimum adding plus 1 per employee. Same thing on the maximum, plus 1 per employee. Same thing on barber shops. Tattoo parlors, same thing, plus 1 for employees, 1 per employee. Funeral homes and mortuaries, we did 1 per 3 persons allowed instead of per 5 persons.
Okay.
Maximum 1 per 2 persons. So basically, we're making them have more parking spaces. Catering facilities, my notes say in minimum to take out plus any required spaces for the restaurant seating area. And basically that's because, your restaurants are downtown and downtown doesn't have seating requirements. We
So it
can't,
doesn't
you
apply.
don't have enough, there isn't a way for enough spaces. That would be, there's nobody that's gonna open a restaurant, and if they can seat 40 people,
Can't have enough parking.
where are you gonna have enough space to put
Right,
40
it's not
cars?
feasible.
40 cars plus all your
It's not
employees.
feasible.
Correct.
Not in our.
Correct, so the only thing he wanted to add was somehow put in something about carryout for a minimum number of spaces. So it was 1 per on-duty employee based upon maximum employment shift plus carryout, but we have to, how many for carryout? How much, I mean, you're gonna have an employee and you're gonna have at least, you know,
2 or 3 spots.
so, and the maximum was 1.5 per on-duty employee plus carryout, but we took out, or,
Took out the 3 persons.
oh yeah, we took out 3 persons allowed within the maximum building occupancy. So instead of saying 1 per 3 persons allowed in maximum occupancy, we changed it to 1.5 per on-duty employee. Not even worried about the seating capacity.
Right.
Because again,
It's not feasible.
it's not feasible.
Okay.
We did nothing with hospitals, medical, osteopathic, we did plus 1 per employee, plus 1 per employee. Offices for professional executive, it only addresses the usables, the floor area. My notes say we need to add something for staff. On both of those.
So if you had 3 per 1,000 square foot of usable floor, how big is that?
1,000 square foot.
Yeah, I mean, is that, like, I think the front of my
100.
building is 600 square feet.
100 by 10 would be
1,000, right? 100 foot by 10 foot would be 1,000 square
So
foot.
if you have to have 3 for 1,000 square feet, and then you have 4 employees, and that place needs 7 spaces? Right?
Well,
Is that what you're
if you
saying?
do, right, if you're doing, well, yeah, I would say,
Maximum is 4 per 1,000.
I would say, I don't know that it needs to, you could do +1 per employee per shift, because, and then your maximum would be 1 per employee for, maximum, you know, it's worded someplace up here.
On duty.
Per on-duty employee based upon maximum employment shift. The other one also says per maximum employment shift, but we could make the minimum per minimum employment shift and the maximum per maximum employment shift or something, just because it doesn't allow for staff.
Right.
So, you know, part of an example there would have been, the building on Main Street that got damaged in the tornado and taken down.
Right,
They were, by today's standards, short of parking spaces,
yes,
even without adding the staff in there.
right,
Right.
yeah, it was,
So, I don't wanna, you know, eliminate anybody because they don't have enough parking, but I also don't want them to only have enough parking for or customers, but then their employees are taking up the parking places.
right.
So, I don't know how or what you guys think a solution to that would be.
Build a high-rise parking structure.
There we go.
Okay. What's your address? That's where we're gonna start.
We'll just defer that smart tax money to that idea. I like your idea better.
So it was a suggestion we talked about earlier, it just doesn't address the staff, that's all. I could actually, ask the planner what the general practice is now.
Right.
I won't do that. That's a
um,
good idea.
And, you know, have her come back with her suggestions.
In a small community with
Correct.
limited, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Ask planner. Okay.
Okay, what else we got? We're on 9.
The- Delete the video rental establishments.
Did we say we're gonna do that?
Yes, we did. It's on 4.
We deleted it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Couple chapters
I
ago.
thought we deleted tattoo parlors too, didn't
Yeah,
we? Maybe not.
we probably did.
You get ready to open one up and
I'm not sure we
delete
did.
that?
Actually,
Dang it.
Be quick before they're approved.
on
No,
the,
we did not.
we did not,
I didn't think we did.
No, we did not.
The tattoo parlor or the video parlor?
Tattoo.
Video we did, tattoo we
Video
did
we did.
not.
Yeah, right there.
so you're all set then, Mike?
I love to tat. Everybody wants a tat nowadays. Gotta have a tat.
So I couldn't, like, when I went through here, and maybe you guys can help me, I didn't find where boarding houses were on the parking list, or home occupations were on the parking list. Adult foster care, I thought I saw that one maybe later, but, no, it would be residential, we have it under.
Well, adult foster care would be here, nursing and convalescent homes, foster care, group homes, assisted living
Okay.
facilities. So that's covered.
But boarding houses, on the use chart, it's under residential, and, it's not on the parking chart, and I didn't see it.
And neither is really childcare.
Yeah, childcare's up there.
Have we ever done a, what's the word I'm looking for our parking, where somebody actually went out and said, this is what we have. You know, because you're talking about minimums here, but I'm just thinking of our businesses in town, that I don't think we're meeting the minimum requirements.
Well, as I said, downtown
There are no
has no
requirements.
requirements.
Right.
Oh,
There are no requirements downtown. So
okay.
that's all of those you can't
So
count.
it's exempt.
Correct.
off the-
It's the Vinkiers, it's the churches,
Okay.
it's the,
It still creates a problem though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, that's what I'm
because,
saying.
especially like for my business, it's difficult sometimes when people wanna know, well, where are they gonna park? It's like, it's catch as catch can, you know, if the bank's not open, you can park there. I've
Right.
had that conversation, they're fine with it. But otherwise, street parking.
Yes.
Go for it. So I thought there was an effort underway to paint all of the, in the C1 and C2, to paint all of those spaces, so at least we could sort of direct people to where the painted spots are. And I know some of them, I don't know if they're all there yet, but
they're working on it as far as I know.
then give us an idea of how many we have at least.
Which segues into the handicap parking, because I know G said there wasn't enough parking spots.
There's new ones in there.
Yeah.
Put new ones.
Yeah, I understand, how many did you put in?
I don't know, I thought he was putting 2 in.
I think
on
he
the-
did.
On the south side
That's what I
of
thought,
Main
too.
Street.
And so that meets the minimum requirements now?
I don't know, I haven't gotten there yet. Again, I don't know that there's any requirements downtown.
We don't need this minimum motion picture theater indoor either, do we?
Yeah, no, well, hang on. Yeah, no, we don't need, 9.5, cinema or motion picture theater, we deleted.
Mhm.
I gotta write down the ones that Sam mentioned, boarding houses.
Right.
I didn't find that, I didn't
I
find
don't
home
find
occupations, I didn't find manufactured housing parks.
Because I think that's discussed in
Different
that
spot.
actual section.
Right.
Okay,
Its
good.
own.
All right.
It's got that own whole
Right.
section.
I also didn't find under community uses, cemeteries or public works, like road maintenance, DPW yards. There were several, under commercial, I didn't find, tobacco, cigar sales, outdoor storage, dismantling, recycling, manufactured housing, you said that's covered. And then for temporary special events and others,
Sam, would you email me that list and
Yeah.
I'll ask her about, because again, they might.
it might be grouped in a way I didn't recognize.
Correct, that might,
If that, well then, my only note on that is if I was looking for it and didn't recognize it, you know, the average schmo out there isn't gonna recognize it.
but that's truly your job as planning commission to
Okay.
help that average schmo recognize that. But I get what you're saying. It would be nice if it kind of went along.
Yeah, just kinda be easier.
Yeah, so,
Okay, yeah.
email me that list and I'll ask her about those
Okay.
items.
Didn't we take out drive-in too? We left drive-through but took out drive-in.
Drive in, correct.
On 9.6. Out.
See, like I had childcare and daycare centers, and then over here I thought there was one.
Manufactured homes is right
No, that's sales.
there. Oh, right.
Group daycare homes, those are different. Packaged liquor stores we took out,
Correct,
Mhm.
power plants, recycling centers we took out.
correct.
And then this one that was a manufacturing processing, that's our light industrial
Correct.
that we have, okay. That's all I got.
Yeah, we got crematoriums, but no cemeteries or anything like that.
I thought this was interesting because, 9.06K, surface park, all parking areas, access and maneuver lane must be paved or have a hard surface.
Well, where are you at?
That's on the top of 911.
Well, wait till we get there. 'Cause that's a whole big problem in the village of Armada.
It is a big problem.
It's a big problem.
Alright.
Okay, so Sam, send me that list and then I'll ask her about some of those more, and we'll go more in depth again on the parking stuff.
Okay.
Those minimum and maximums after she's made the ones I know, but we'll ask her about the other ones. We'll come back to that. Under 9.06, the design requirements for barrier-free parking. Oh yeah, we would meet all the requirements. But anyways, under 906B, the landscaping, Ben wanted the ability for the planning commission to modify that. Same thing with the curbing.
What do you mean by that?
Well, at the risk of asking an obvious question, why would you want to landscape a handicap parking spot? I thought the whole purpose was you pack your van in, you unload, and that's it.
Because they don't want you to just put in 2 parking spots with nothing that's gonna be a barrier between the residential district beyond it, or if it borders, that goes to not necessarily between the 2 spaces. That's where the spaces border.
Think of the Vinkner parking lot where the spaces back up to the fence there. And all those arborvitaes that got blown over.
That's what the landscaping is referring to, is the edges, not in between the spots, not each individual spot, but the whole general idea of where they're at, they don't.
Between the
same-
property owners.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And the same thing with the curbing. Parking lots shall be provided with concrete curbs and gutters. The only reason he wants to put that can be modified by the PC is we would never allow somebody to put in something that is going to drain or ruin somebody else's property, but it might not necessarily be curb and gutter. It might be a swale, it might be something else, it might be a grade change or something, was his reasoning for asking for that.
So along those lines, isn't that required now, the bioswales, with new parking? Or are we grandfathered in?
Not that I'm aware of. I can ask them,
Okay.
but usually they let me know, especially knowing we're going through our ordinance.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that word that you said.
Bioswale.
Bioswale,
Bio?
it's
Bio.
instead of having where everything just runs to the street and runs into the sewer, there is a school of thought that says we have to remove parking spaces and put in green areas for all the water to drain into that.
Oh,
So that's the rationale behind it.
okay.
Generally, when, especially knowing we're doing our ordinances, when there is a change, mandatory change, they're very good at sending me this, hey, while you're doing this, keep this in mind.
Yeah.
So, they haven't, but I made a note, I'll ask them.
Okay, because if that's is in effect, that's gonna make this much, much, much worse then.
Right.
Correct.
Because now you just literally,
You're eliminating spots, right?
you're limiting spots.
Correct, so.
Right.
Okay,
Well, I'm okay with both of those suggested changes from previous, B and E.
yeah, and I'll tell them to word it nicer, but,
Get it done.
Tell them to word it nicely.
yeah, because Lord knows I don't. Next page, G. Off-street parking spaces directly abut a sidewalk. Sidewalk shall be widened to at least 7 feet in width to accommodate vehicle encroachment.
So that's if there's no grass, there's sidewalk, grass, road, there's no grass, so make the sidewalk wider too.
But then we go back to, okay, right there I have a 7-foot wide sidewalk, right next to it I have a 4-foot wide sidewalk. So, my notes say if
I was just
applicable.
gonna say if applicable.
Yeah, only if it's
Okay.
applicable.
I just think you're inviting people to park on the sidewalk then.
If it's 7 feet wide,
Yeah.
oh, I don't disagree.
They're just gonna park and then you don't.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. or you got cars pulling in right on.
7 feet's an awful wide sidewalk.
There's your smart cars.
Yeah.
Put them in the long way.
Um, Under I, the second paragraph, right in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
it says, "No parking shall be permitted on lawns or other unpaved areas of a residential lot.
Yeah.
One accessory driveway shall be permitted per dwelling." We discussed that on one of the other chapters we did
Mm-hmm.
last month, and we agreed that it should not be, there shouldn't have two unless you have a width, which I should look, I don't remember if it was 100 or 120
I think it
feet.
was 120.
So they could say the same thing there, you can have, you know, unless you have, you know, but,
Now, from previous discussion, I have down with the whole garage.
improve whole width of garage and park alongside of garage.
Mhm.
Width not to exceed 12 feet or the total width of all accessory garage doors. I'm not sure what we were trying to do there. I know we wanted to be able to make it wider than 12 feet, because if you have a double garage door,
Right.
Yeah, how wide is that? 20 feet?
I don't know. Hey Google.
Mhm.
That's what it's for.
Garage door. 16 feet.
16.
So,
So change that to 16 feet?
well, I agree that it should be, will not exceed 12 feet or the total width of all accessory garage doors served by the driveway. Well, so that would be fine. If your accessory
You're
garage
saying
door
and
is,
the door and the,
is double, but,
But then you don't have a, you have a 1-lane driveway then, where you have to back your,
no, we're not saying that. We're saying this, the way it's written is it can only be 12 feet or as wide as your garage doors. So if your garage, you have a double garage door, it's 16 feet, so your driveway can be 16
you can
feet,
match your garage doors.
is what this says. But
Okay.
what did we say about this improve full width of garage and park alongside of garage?
right, I'm not sure.
So I think it's
You
written
say
correctly, because they
maximum
can
of
go
one
as
accessory
wide
driveway shall
as,
be permitted per dwelling, with a maximum width, and my arrow goes from right there, of whole garage, with a maximum width of whole garage.
what if you don't have a garage?
Well, then you're screwed.
That's why, that's probably why it's in there, with a maximum width of 12 feet
Right,
or the width
so
of
yeah, if
your
you have no garage, then your maximum would be 12 feet.
So then you have a single lane driveway.
Correct.
And no garage.
Correct.
That
Right.
sucks.
Well, what would you need a bigger driveway? Well, you would need a bigger driveway if you go to that you cannot park on unpaved areas,
Right.
so.
Well, if you want, my house in Troy had a small, it had a 1-lane driveway, but then it had, it had a big apron, and I could park there so that I don't have to back a car out to get
Correct.
another car to get,
Correct.
that's a bunch of hooey, especially
Bunch of
in
hoo-ha.
the winter. I mean, that's nonsense. So,
I don't know that they're referring to the whole, drive within the required front yard. So what you're saying is you don't want it to only be one lane all the way, even if they only have a 1-car garage.
yeah. If there's room, why can't they have a double?
I don't know. I know a planner's answer is going to be because you don't want a bunch of concrete in the village. But to me, that's not a great answer, that's why you have a maximum number of parking spots for businesses, but not, I mean, I always go back to, it's my property. Why, why can't I put a wider driveway if that's what I need?
If I have room.
I have 3 kids that are all driving and I don't have off-street parking and I gotta, get up at 5 o'clock because they're going to school, so I get your point, totally get your point. So, what's everybody else think?
I mean, I guess if you've got the property.
I mean, they'd still have to go by any setbacks or
Right.
any other requirements, so.
Right, if there's room, it'd be nice to have the option to have a double
I agree.
wide driveway.
So you just wanna say, just put in a feet, a maximum of blah blah feet, and not even reference the garages?
I think that would be better.
Yeah, you can do that.
That fits the bill.
And if you have the room, then you can,
Maximum of 16 feet.
I did a double garage door, so the garage door is 16 feet, so the garage itself,
Would have to be,
I would say would probably
18 to
be
20.
20 feet.
Okay.
With a maximum width not to exceed.
take all this out.
Yeah, that way they can.
Okay.
So back to this K.
Well, okay, as I said, that's a huge problem in the village. And at one point Ben said take it out of the ordinance, and, because he didn't think it was a problem. But it's a huge problem. So,
Well, so what responsibility does the planning commission have to see that the rules that we pass get enforced? Do we have any responsibility to that?
Code enforcement, right?
the code enforcer can, but I'm going to tell you from past experience, if he started sending people letters saying you're parked on your grass, it's not allowed, you're parked on an unimproved surface, it's not allowed, it has to be moved within 10 days, the council will back him off.
Really?
So what we
The
have to
council will
convince,
what,
back him off, tell him to stop.
make
Yeah.
them stop.
So truly, that's where it needs to go. I myself would leave it in the ordinance, but our stop, I think council needs to be made aware that it is a bigger problem than they realize. So, and then have them say, we're gonna pick on it, we're not gonna pick on it. A lot of people, it's their trailers or their boats, but they're still parked where they don't belong
Park
parked.
in the grass 2 doors down from me. They have a lot of cars and trucks and they put it there, I'm sure, because that person has to get out first, right?
Yeah.
So they.
I did it after we looked at this the first time. On my way into work every day, I took a different street. And there was 12 on one street, 20 on another street, 17 on one street, 15 on one street. So it was a bigger problem than you realize. I mean, than you think about, truly. So if it's something that people want to see council make a decision on or say, or whether it be that in a water bill, if there's a notice that goes out that, according to zoning ordinance, blah, 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 effective January 1st, it will be enforced, or something, that's a problem for me, but you can't pick and choose which ones to enforce, is my opinion.
Right.
Right,
So-
yeah. I agree with that.
And there is a section in here that does say what they can, an improved lot means, what they can use to improve it. So,
Yeah, it says it right over here. Maybe not. Hard surfaces with concrete plant mixed. I can't say that word, material, brick or stone. Bituminous,
bituminous,
bituminous? Which I don't know what that is.
That's if you have an overbite on your teeth,
But
like tuna.
so.
I should look that word
We did discuss it one time, but I don't remember.
Well, we
I
did
thought that
it,
was basically wood chips.
I don't know what it is. Plant mixed bituminous material.
That,
Bituminous.
K surfaces all parking areas, access and maneuvering lanes must be paved or have a hard surface, and what comes to my mind is the funeral home just put in that parking lot.
Correct.
Now, did we have to
Well,
approve that?
it has not officially been approved by the building inspector. Bituminous materials are dark brown or black, semi-solid or liquid, thermoplastic mixtures of hydrocarbons derived from natural or synthetic processes in which hydrocarbon mixtures have lost their volatile components, leaving a denser residue.
I got asphalt,
Bituminous is
That's what I got
these
too.
yeah,
So mixture, pre-mixture, bituminous.
asphalt, basically,
Asphalt is called the bitumen itself,
yeah.
so that would be kind of what it is.
So they're still not out on that lot?
Yeah, and I saw them use it, so,
Hmm?
I saw that they're using it, I have to have the
Yeah,
building
they are
inspector.
using it.
go
Yeah,
back to
oh
them.
yeah, and they need it. I'm not
Right.
saying there isn't a need for it, because there's definitely a need, but I was just wondering
Yeah.
how they determined that that was okay just to throw the gravel on Okay.
I'll have to find it here, I'll have to find it before I bring it to his attention. Under 9.07 off-street loading, we deleted the bottom two, because there's nothing we have that would fit that requirement.
Section 9.08,
No,
B and C,
907.
907 B and C.
No.
No, up in the chart.
In the chart, I'm
The
sorry.
bottom
Oh,
two
okay,
lines.
okay. Bottom
I'm
two
sorry.
lines, okay.
Sorry, Sam, not there. In the
Over
chart
half a million
right there.
square feet.
Right here. The
Oh, these two.
300,000, yeah, I'm sorry.
10 plus 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are in,
Yeah, yeah.
all right.
No one wants to go big or go home.
Ah, there we go. Surface materials. When the applicant demonstrates the satisfaction of planning commission that alternative surface materials will not impact the aesthetic appearance or character of the site and surrounding neighborhood. The planning commission may permit alternative parking lot surface materials, including, and we even wanted, or our notes say to add stone-based
Yep.
to that.
Okay.
Add stone like gravel?
Okay,
That
so the
east
planning
end.
commission may permit alternative parking lot surface materials. Did they come to you guys and ask for?
No.
Well, no, because they didn't come to us to make the parking lot, they didn't need to come to us to do the parking lot. So, based on this, though, the
They should.
building inspector
He
can,
He can.
Allow.
and-
what they're, if that's what they're asking.
But he has to ask the planning commission, the building
Yeah, I was gonna
inspector
say,
can't make
yeah,
the decision, the
right.
planning does.
The planning would have to
They don't
say-
have to come to planning to put in a parking lot.
He could ask us.
Well,
I mean, he's doing the job, but the ordinance says that it's the planning commission that decides.
Again, I'm not trying to make waves, but I'm curious as to how they just threw that up there. 'Cause that's basically what.
well, they just threw it up there, they did, that's because what everybody in the village does.
That's
They-
what I'm saying. and-
Everybody in the village does what everybody in the village suits down,
Right, and-
so.
If we're gonna have a planning commission and we have a code enforcer, we shouldn't be doing that. Right back?
I'm gonna give them all your phone number. I don't disagree, but I have in 14 years, I've not been backed by the council on that, so.
We'll change that.
Yes, the funeral home, I would say add stone base. The funeral home is this discussion that I have to have with the building inspector, because they have not done what they need to do.
No, we had gravel and I crossed it out. Did we change our mind?
Just
Are
because we
saying
didn't want to
that's not
specifically say gravel, we said
Okay.
stone base, because there's other options,
stone? Okay,
is what the thought was at the time.
okay.
Anything else you guys have on mind? That's
Yeah,
what we
nothing.
had done
Yeah.
before.
That's it. Okay, so we're moving into 10.
I have nothing marked in 10.
I don't either, just some grammar stuff, but nothing. Substantive.
We've never done a traffic impact study here, have
They have made, some of the bigger things. I do believe the funeral home, not funeral home, the, nursing home had to do one at first.
Okay,
Um,
makes sense.
Not every time.
Initially.
It truly does, it is based on, I think, what the business is. It would be a big enough thing that the engineer in their review would suggest that for us to follow through with that.
Okay, makes sense.
Something that would really require a traffic study is definitely something we take to the engineer. So.
Right.
Right, for sure.
Okay.
And the planner is good at that too. But, that was just a note, for not to change anything, but it goes to one driveway road access per street right away.
Yeah, and I had down refer to, this is where I must have screwed up my notes. It says I on 910, which we do not have a 910. Corner lots and large lots could be able to have 2 openings for driveway if not on a main street.
Yeah, that's from my notes there over there too.
Over there, okay. So you'll discuss all that?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anybody else got anything on 10?
No.
That was all I had.
You did? No?
I do not.
Oh.
And that's what we're gonna do.
So we're gonna do the weather next time?
Well, we're gonna hope 9 and 10 come back.
Right?
Okay.
Alright, given that it's not regular,
You'll be short pretty much a week.
yeah. So we could probably set 11 for next week. 12's pretty short. What do you guys, or next week, next month?
11 and 12?
Gonna do 11 and 12 together?
Whatever you say.
Sounds good.
Okay, so then for next month, we will go through 11 and 12, checking for changes and anything that we're looking at there. Anybody got anything else on ordinance review?
I do not.
Okay, and we are moving on. Next, I believe, is report. I did lose my agenda. With all my shifting around the papers, here we go. Okay, so in reports, I have a few things that I'd like to go over. We do have a signed letter of resignation from Sarah Rumble. She will no longer be with us, so we do need another member. Okay, keep your eyes open. And I have a couple of businesses that the code enforcer and myself have been going to, trying to get them to comply with. One of them is with new rules that we set, and the other one is with existing rules. We're not getting any compliance from these 2 businesses, that we'll leave it at that for now. What I would like to do is have the board suggest that Becky write a letter, let them know that they need to get in compliance, or they need to get something taken care of, because this is, it's months.
Can we find them?
I'm not exactly
Yeah, you
100%
can.
sure of how it's gonna go for
You can.
non-compliance.
The attorney will recommend that you have a paper trail. So write the letters, give them X number of time
Sure.
to come in and do what they need to do to become compliant.
Yeah.
If they ignore you or choose not to, then that's when you say they will be cited, and yes, they can be ticketed for,
Follow the process.
right.
Sure.
but
Right, because
the
right now
outcome-
all we have is personal visits that myself and the code enforcer have made, and it's getting nowhere with both.
So similar to
businesses.
what the code enforcer gives,
For anybody,
yeah.
grass, tall
Yeah,
grass,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
jump car,
Yeah.
anything,
Same
correct,
type of
same thing,
Procedure.
correct.
Okay.
And in reality, for them, it would be give them X number of time to come into the office, find out what they need, so that they can hopefully be prepared and come to the next planning commission meeting. So,
Right,
Okay.
but we do need the board's approval for Becky to write this letter.
So do you want a, motion? Or do we
Does
not
it
need
have to be a vote,
I
or
don't
can we
think so.
just
I think
decide?
we
I
can
think we
just
can just
decide.
decide
Yeah,
that we want.
definitely, yeah, that's
to
our
have this-
process, and we
Sure.
should follow our
Yeah,
process.
follow the process.
And
Absolutely.
do we want to set a time frame of when we want to see something taken care of?
So, again, you don't wanna give them too much time because they've already obviously
Right.
been non-compliant.
But
You
our
have 1,
meeting,
2, 3.5 weeks before your next
next
meeting.
meeting, okay.
So even if I put a letter out tomorrow and they get 10 days from the date of the letter, they'd have to come in the next day in order to be in time to be on the agenda, if I put the agenda out 2 weeks ahead of
So
time.
we wanna wait some time
Well, how long
and
does
put
it
it to
take?
the November
But
meeting.
they don't have to know what meeting they're meeting.
Well, I
You
was
just
gonna
give them
say,
an-
so you can say, I would still give them the 10 days to come in and talk. They may not come to the
Right,
next,
to the next meeting, but they
but
at least
at
have,
the next meeting, part of the reports would be,
that they've come in,
They've
they
come
have
in,
this
this
amount
is
of time,
what-
right.
alright. I'll give
Okay,
them
I like
10
that
days.
idea.
Alright.
Now, how long does it take a letter to actually go out now? Because is the mail still screwed up?
You know, truly, I can't answer that, which is the other reason that if we're not worried about pushing them for the next meeting, I always allow a little leeway, and I always say 10 days from the date of this letter. And I will be perfectly honest, some people get them in 2 days, some people get them in 10 days. But I say, as long as you call me, you're okay. I'm not gonna do anything, respond. And it actually sometimes works out better if they get it the day before the 10th day, because then they're more hurried and they don't put it down and forget about it.
Sure.
So, my suggestion would be give them the 10 days and then see what's happened at the next meeting, see where it's fallen at the next meeting, because the agenda gets taken care of the day after that 10-day thing is taken care of, so.
Right.
Because I'd hate to see a letter get sent out and it's sitting in Royal Oak for about a month.
Well, and I can't disagree there, okay? Generally, I will tell you that, like, for the code enforcer, for high grass or junk cars, the letter goes out, they have 10 days. If they do nothing and he checks back, and he usually does like a 2-week check, not a 10-day, he's not real, you know, we're not real sticklers on that, because we don't want to ticket anybody.
Right,
Mhm.
not your intention.
If it's still there, he's gonna go up, knock on the door. Hey, did you get the letter? We gotta take care of these cars, or, so he would do the same thing. He would,
He's just following up.
stop, visit, hopefully different times of the day to catch somebody to follow up, to
Right.
say, you know, hey, this is the deal and this is what you need to do. So,
Usually the mail's still pretty reliable. He is a former postal employee, at least what I've seen. Especially if you live in Armada and it's mailed into Armada, it still has to go across to a processing center in Pontiac, actually it's not where I live. But the processing center is in Michigan, so it would go back directly to, you know, it's processed there and comes back, so. Used to be a time when if it was local, they would just put it right back in the slot, you know, like if you mailed a letter from your house to my house, we both live in town, it would never leave Armada, it would just stay in the post
Yeah, that
office.
makes more sense.
I know, that's what they eliminated that through
Why
automation.
don't we get everybody a copy of this, rather than having read over this whole thing?
I would gloss over that. I mean, I can make copies, I don't care.
It would probably be easier, to be able to take it home and have it for
But you have to talk to her, you have to call her
Yeah.
after.
Yep.
So the enforcements that you were talking about, are these real major issues?
Yes,
or they
very
are?
much so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, then we definitely need to follow up on
Follow the process.
Yeah.
From the very beginning. Yeah.
those. We have a reputation of, the council at least, of not being pro-business. So I hate to see us be, you know,
Right, and that's part of why I think we've kind of just given the leniency that we have, is that we don't want to see businesses close in town due to non-compliance,
Sure.
because they just don't feel that that's necessary for them, is what the excuses
sure,
were.
thanks, Bud.
But in the same aspect, it's things that do have to be taken care of. We
Mhm.
require it of all other businesses in town. It needs to be taken care of with them as well.
Thank you.
This is a business looking to come into town.
I'll keep the original at the office.
Good to me. It was on the folder. a
I
minute.
had a sticky paper.
Oh, I didn't take nothing off. It's in my, I think you sent it to me in an email. It's in there.
Are we gonna discuss this now?
I would like to, yes, because
Okay.
this lady is expecting a phone call back from me to let her know what we're looking at, you know, how we feel about this business coming into town, and kind of get her moving forward with
I
coming
was,
to
I
plan.
was wondering your expertise on this. We are working on an agreement with Patrick Mold and Engineering for a lease to buy agreement for the 74081 Church Street property for our day-to-day operation. Is that his building? Or is that
It's-
just part of the building?
It's the original building,
Right.
where he expanded into that other building,
Okay.
where there's the apartment up at top.
Okay,
This is the original
The others.
building.
Okay.
So it's the southernmost
okay.
Right.
building.
Now, are they fabricating prototype parts or are they doing mass
I don't know what these things
production?
are.
This is where I'm a little confused.
CNC machine. and then
Computer numerical control.
manual machine.
If you have that many questions, you can ask them to fill out a site plan application and attend the meeting.
Oh, for sure, they would do that anyway, right?
There's a provision in your ordinance that says, like business to like business
Can be taken care of.
can be an administrative review.
I mean, tentatively from what I'm seeing over here, I don't see a problem per se, but I need to know more about
In the,
the
se-
size.
I never liked
in the
that.
second paragraph, it pretty much explains what they do. Everything we do is small parts that can be moved by hand without the lifting equipment and assistance. Materials we commonly deal with could be 1018 CRS 6061 T6 aluminum, UMHMX plastic, design plastic, A36 steel plate.
Yeah, I just cut
So,
part. We do machine some parts of other companies that supply to General Motors.
mhm.
So that's why I'm kind of wondering how,
Cur- And truly what you need to know is what currently is being done at Patrick Mold, what he was approved for. They're both light industrial, but are they the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
If they're the same thing, that's when it's administrative.
I've never
review.
really
Is
really
this-
liked that,
Yeah.
administrative review, that I just make a decision and decide who comes and goes. I feel it's something that needs to come before the board. We all have questions. I don't want to make a decision with this woman, and then you guys have something that you didn't agree with, or you would have rather had more
Mhm.
information on.
Sure.
I'm sure she's more than happy if you call and tell her then to go through the site plan application process sooner than later so that the board has time to review.
are we speaking about the gentleman in the letter or?
Well, that, though, I say her because she's the one, his
Right.
wife is
Okay.
the one I've talked to, I'm
Right.
sorry.
I'm just making
Yeah.
sure I'm not
Yeah,
missing.
yeah, no, his wife is the one that dropped it off, that called,
Okay.
that, I'm assuming because he's busy working,
Right.
so.
I think as long as they're in the parameters, like you said, Becky, if they are in parameters, light industrial, we certainly should hope with open arms, you know, to have them.
So then,
Mhm.
if you want them to do the whole process, to come in, to explain what they're doing, how they're doing it, hours and
I think we should.
all of that,
That's
like,
how I prefer things to
Sure.
be done.
well, then, you make the phone call.
Well, yeah, and also for a lease to buy agreement, is that,
We wouldn't make any reference to that, that's none of
That's
our
their
concern.
business.
Yeah, that's right.
None of our concern, kind of like when, you know, we approved your business, we weren't approving whatever deal you had with Mrs. Weiss to purchase the building all those years ago. So, that part's
I
irrelevant, we're
just
approving your
wondered,
business.
I thought you had to be the business, the building owner,
The
the
bill,
property.
all he would
the
have
property
to
owner.
do on the application is have the building owner sign the application.
Okay.
So, because there's a spot that says,
Because we can't give someone permission to do something
Correct.
to a building that's not his.
correct,
Right.
so in theory though, by the building owner signing the site plan application, he's given his permission.
Okay.
So, correct, you're
Makes sense.
exactly right, we cannot give them permission to do something on somebody else's property,
Somebody, they don't own it.
even if they're, and we went through this with Larry. Part of Larry's conditional approval to expand was, providing proof to the office that the purchase of the property went through.
Right.
So, correct.
Okay.
So that, they would have to have Patrick signing the
So
application.
there'd have to be some idea of,
Correct.
So you're gonna make the call,
Yes.
and we'll
I will
proceed
have them.
forward from there, okay? That's great. Any
Okay.
tax base we can get.
Absolutely, I have no problem with the business coming into town. I just prefer for them to come in front of the committee and let us make a decision on how things go, so that any questions that you guys have are covered at that
Sure.
time.
Appreciate that.
So that's what I have for reports. Anybody else got anything?
Speaking of tax increase, I'd like to see Fritz come back and us reevaluate his proposal, if he in fact would do that. On that
for,
property, the 22 houses
Okay.
that he wanted to build.
Nothing's changed as far as that goes, though. Nothing's changed as far as our density, what we would require, and.
so there, until something changes, there's no point.
Either he's gotta change what his plan was, or when you get to that part of the ordinance, you're gonna have to make a drastic change to
Drastic.
that. So
Drastic.
I wouldn't, unless you have a contact with him to call him and say, are you willing to change, which he's
Mhm.
not, cause he hasn't come back to us. You can't, just because your board's changed a little bit, the rules are still the same.
Mhm.
So
So
the
the-
planner and the engineer are still gonna have the same concerns.
Mhm.
So if we change the density, you still, the planner and the engineer still have the same issues, that's what you're saying?
We would have to change the density, because that was the biggest problem, was he wanted too many condos in too small
Yeah,
of a
so we have
space.
to see if he would be willing to reduce that.
And he didn't want to. He said he wouldn't make any money. So the only change to that would be, we would have to change our ordinance to allow him to put more homes in a smaller area, much against the planner and the engineer
Right.
with our ordinance. So,
That's the spot.
We'll
so
get there in
on
in
that,
time.
then I would say unless he's willing to change, don't do anything with him till we're done with our
Right.
ordinances
When we get
and
to
the
it
new
all.
ordinance is adopted,
Okay,
on the chance that we change that,
okay. That's fair.
which will still be a process, but there's no point in now because nothing's changed.
Right, unless he is,
Correct.
unless it's on his end. But it seems unlikely.
Yeah.
He'd be less likely to make
He
money.
was pretty set when he was before the board the last time, so yeah. Like,
Yeah, you know, people change their minds sometimes,
They do.
especially when you're talking about money.
And not making any by doing nothing. Yes.
Right. Just got the property sitting there.
Mhm. So, we'll
There's
get to that
certainly a
section
need.
and,
If we had that in Armada, I can guarantee you though, he would sell every one of those within a
oh, I know
year's
many
time.
people that have
Oh,
considered it,
I don't
absolutely,
disagree with
yes.
you on that, and that he
Yes.
would make money, but
Right.
if,
He would
in
sell
his
them.
mind.
Yeah, he would,
So,
he would sell
but-
them all.
He was,
Mhm.
he was looking that he wouldn't have as many to sell
Right,
by staying within our ordinances,
Right.
so. When we get to that section, we'll take a look at what we can do, and there's some things that just aren't gonna be able to be done.
right.
But until we can get through that part of it, I think we
Where do we
are at
get
a
the,
standstill.
where do we get the information, like, my husband's on council, you guys know that, and he's the water commissioner, and he
Yeah.
talks about, you know, density being like, there has to be some limited growth in order to provide a bigger, tax base for the village to survive
Mhm.
in the years to come, because we have such a small, you know, pot that we're drawing from. So how do we sort of research that and make sure that all those assumptions are accurate, and then adjust that, you take that knowledge to the planner and you know what I'm trying to say? So that we look at all of the reasons to do it and not to do it,
Mhm. Pro and con.
when we get there, yeah.
Mhm.
Is that true? Is it vital for the village to have more properties within its boundaries in order for long-term survivability?
Well, and valid point, because sometimes you'd just be selling your soul to the devil, just for the sake of money, was it really necessary
Yeah.
to do?
Yeah.
So that's about, at that part, I don't know where we go from
How,
that.
yeah, and then do we, I mean, is there property to annex? Can we add things that way? And then we could, I mean, it's another way to, is that a planning
Well,
commission?
and yes, it is, actually, it's
Okay.
part of the master plan.
Okay.
And, just to make your day, when we're all done with this,
I know that.
we're past
Yeah.
due for the master
Right.
plan, so that has to be revisited.
Right.
Those sorts of, I mean, those are interesting questions to, think about. I mean, those have an impact on,
Mhm.
on tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's been a very fruitful hour and a half.
Yes. All right, nobody else for reports? We are looking for that final motion.
I'll make a motion that we finish our meeting at,
It's called adjourn.
thank you, Becky, at 8:17.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
8:17, done.